our lovely guest with us today. She is a certified life and leadership coach and founder of Anchor to Aspire Coaching. After 25 plus years shaping talents and culture inside one of the world's largest companies, her own role elimination forced her to ask a deeper question. Who are we without our title? She now coaches midlife leaders standing at the edge of transition using energy, leadership, positive intelligence, whole brain thinking, and image-based reflection to help them gain clarity and step into what comes next with intention and happiness. Our lovely guest, Johanna Danaher. Thank you for being with us today, Johanna. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Allison. I am pleased and absolutely thrilled to have this conversation with you. Really looking forward to our dialogue.
Awesome, Johanna. So, Johanna, losing a role after 25 years could be identified as a major identity shock. What was that moment for you when you realized that your title had just helped to shape who you have become today?
Yeah, it's a great question. And for me, I'm actually still today, even a year and a half later, saying things like we when I talk about my old employer. I'm still talking about myself as a talent leader. It takes time. It takes reflection. It takes a pause, really intentionally to ask yourself, who do I want to be? Not what do I want to do, but who do I want to be right now in order to step into whatever's going to be next for me? I had defined my worth, my value based on that title and what I was doing every single day, not who I was being. And I had lost sight of who I truly was. You think you grow and you think you develop and you learn new things, but there were parts of me that I had sort of put on the back burner that I wasn't paying attention to, that I hadn't been honoring. And those were the things that were really calling to me to focus on.
Excellent. Awesome, Johanna. And I'm loving this so far. Great. You have a great energy and I'm really appreciating what you have shared so far. Now, when leaders hit midlife, or when leaders hit midlife and their title seemingly falls away, what's that first pattern that you look for that tells you where their identity is actually anchored?
Yeah, so the first thing I look at is really understanding their energy. So I'm looking for, when I work with leaders in this space, true passion, true joy. So what are the things that we wake up in the morning wishing we were doing, right? So really understanding that, because you know those days where you're at work and you're doing amazing amount of work and everything feels like it's in flow, and you come home and you're energized at the end of the day. Then you have a day, probably same schedule, same number of meetings, but it doesn't feel like you're in flow and you're fighting a fire here and you're taking care of that urgent thing there, and you come home and you're exhausted, right? The days were probably pretty similar in terms of tasks and actions, but it was really, there's something there when you're doing the thing that is lighting you up inside. That's what we want to find. We really want to spend some time there. And I also focus on values, because values are so important. And many of us, especially at midlife, haven't looked at the values that really guide our lives, probably in a few years, if at all, right? So this is important for us to put that sort of structure in place. What are the values that are really important to me? And what's then the work that I'm doing that brings me joy?
Amazing, Johanna. And that's some really deep thinking that you are actually encouraging or guest or uh, viewers to think about. So, I'm thankful that you are sharing this. It's not just sharing your experience, but you are allowing them to see the value behind what you're sharing in terms of having that structure in place. Now, Johanna, what's one practical step that you recommend someone can take to reconnect with who they are outside of their roles or outside of their job title?
So there's one thing, the first thing that I would say is really inventorying the things that bring you joy. Oftentimes we have this misconception that work and joy cannot coexist, right? And it's like the lucky few are the ones that find the job that serves their soul and serves their sort of functional needs, right? So doing that inventory of the things that we're doing every day and finding what really lights us up. Then the second is really creating space to pause, because pause, I think, is the biggest superpower that any of us have. Glorified busyness. We value ourselves based on how much we have produced, how many outcomes we have achieved, instead of really valuing how I'm showing up in the moment. So taking that pause to really create space to allow yourself to reflect. So those are two. I mean, it's really all one thing. It's really thinking about who do you want to really be, right? The whole idea of a pivot, right? These moments that we're in, they are identity problems. They are not strategy problems. So it's really about what should my next move be based on what I love, not what somebody else's definition of success is. So, really relooking at how am I defining what success looks like for me? I might have said success was achieving a manager role or a VP title or owning a business or whatever it might have been. Anybody has this definition of success, but oftentimes they're someone else's. So it's really looking at how do we define success for ourselves.
Excellent. And you have really shared some great points there, as it relates to helping individuals learning how to anchor that success, not just, not to lean on what others think that success is, because success means so many different things to everyone. So it's just a great way of helping them to anchor what success means to them. Great. All right. So what's one belief about career identity that in your professional experience you believe quietly limits leaders during that transition period?
So this one is an interesting one because it's also that you have to know the whole path, or you have to have the sort of clear ladder that you want to follow, and that there's this step-by-step process that if I follow this process, then I will achieve what I want and be happy. And that's the myth, right? You do not need to know the whole path to take the next step. Clarity is a wonderful thing to want, right? And it's really, really important for us to be really clear with ourselves. But most people that I work with are not stuck because they sort of lack ability or they're unclear. They are stuck because they're trying to see the whole path, the whole road, the whole staircase before they're willing to take the next step, right? You don't need that whole map. Right. It's good to have an idea of like a pinnacle role or something out there, but you need just the next step, right? Because oftentimes the next step after that becomes more clear than it would ever be from here, right? So the first step is the most important step, then the next step, then the next step. And if we only aim for that end goal, we're probably wearing blinders. Like I like to say, like if you ever see a horse in a horse race, like they have blinders on because they're focused on that end. So they don't see the beauty around them. They don't see the opportunities that are right in front of them, unless they're right in front of them, right? So they're always racing towards a goal without actually stopping to appreciate the moment.
Awesome. And I love your share there about the horse. When those blinders are on, they just keep focusing on what's ahead. And as individuals, you mentioned there, so that we have to take time to appreciate the beauty, not just in what's around us, but what's inside of us as well. So I love that. Now, what's one thing that you find that consistently surprises your clients? So once they seem to move away from their title and are transitioning to the next version of themselves, what's one thing that you find that may surprise them?
Fear can be fuel. So I love that you asked this question because that does surprise them because oftentimes fear is something that's holding, us back. And I recently had a conversation not too long ago. I was in a working group where somebody was saying that, that fear really is false evidence appearing real. And it really should be reframed as face everything and rise. And I was like, oh, I love that, right?
Mhm.
Because fear is fuel, right? So fear does not mean that and being fearless, right, does not mean the absence of fear. It just means taking a step anyway, admits amongst the fear, right? So fear is a signal. But we've been taught to treat it as a stop sign, like don't go any further, something that's to wait out until it passes. But I find that fear and excitement and anticipation sort of live nearly in the same place in the body. Fear tends to show up at the moments where we're right at the edge of something that matters, right? We don't have to wait for fear to disappear before we move. We can move with it and we can use it as fuel. So it helps us to actually take that step forward. But it requires that we take the pause to ask ourselves, what truly am I afraid of? Am I afraid of success? Am I afraid of failure? Am I afraid of something else? And how can I actually use that fear as fuel instead of something to stop me?
Amazing, amazing, Johanna, because you mentioned from what my take on this is you help to bring them to a point where they have to make a choice. So they realize what's stopping them and they have to make a choice from there because you mentioned that so many are actually afraid to make a choice when it comes down to, your experience. You realize that what they struggle with most is a fear. There's a fear there. And I'm glad
Mm,
that you are one of those experts that are there to help them get past this fear and continue with the best of their life. Now, there is one
mm,
more question that I'd love to ask as we're closing. You have done really great in terms of
thank you.
time. For a leader or for someone who is listening who may be in a leadership role, they feel, let's say, unanchored right now. What's the one thing that you want them to hold on to as they navigate what's next?
Mhm. The biggest thing is, especially for someone who feels unanchored, is to really challenge the story that's in our head. Because we all tell ourselves stories based on the things that we have around us. And that story is often um, a judgment, or it's often a critic, or it's often, something that's holding us back, right? And it's a story we're telling ourselves. So that's what I would say is most of us carry that voice that narrates our shortcomings, that tells us we're not going to be successful or that we have to make it perfect, and holds us back, and it sort of undermines our own confidence, right? So I like to say it's about shifting that inner critic to being an inner coach. So saying thank you to the voice that shows up at 2 o'clock in the morning that questions everything we're doing, and saying, okay, well, thank you for protecting me. What I need from you now is to help me move forward, to take the next step. I need you to be my coach. I need you to be
Mhm.
that person who is in my corner as opposed to the person who is sort of holding me back, right? Because that's where we can actually move forward. That sort of inner voice that's the supporter is going to name what's hard, and ask what would help, right? So it's not toxic positivity. It is, yeah, I'm recognizing this is real, but also I'm challenging the story that I'm putting on it. So every leader gets to decide who holds the microphone, right? Is it that critic or is it that coach?
Mhm. Thank you so much, Johanna. And what I appreciate most about what you have shared today, you make it so possible. So you make this seem so possible for those who are in need of what you have to offer. And I'm sure that your clients appreciate what you do. I'm positive that our viewers will appreciate this wonderful, information that you have shared, advice, guidance. I want to say thank you so much for taking the time out to talk with me today. It has been a pleasure, and I look forward to talking with you in future. Thank you.
Absolutely, Allison. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and I wish you the best of days ahead.
Same to you. It is an absolute pleasure to have